Everyone knows the Enterprise, everyone knows the crew. But what most people don't know is that the show that defined a generation of science fiction almost fell apart before it ever found its footing, because the people inside those uniforms were miserable, frustrated, and in some cases, actively trying to escape. The cast of Star Trek: The Next Generation was this close to being completely different. And if even one of these stories had gone the other way, the show we remember, the one that ran for 7 seasons and spawned 4 movies, simply doesn't exist. Hi, my name is Aaron, and this is Old TV Cinema. The Weight of the Pointy Ears, Denise Crosby. Denise Crosby was cast as Lieutenant Tasha Yar, the chief of security aboard the Enterprise. On paper, it was a great role, a strong, capable female character in a leadership position. This was 1987. That wasn't nothing. Crosby was excited. She signed on. She showed up ready to work. And then the reality of television production set in. See, here's the thing about ensemble casts on network television. There are a lot of people sharing screen time. And when you have Patrick Stewart anchoring every scene with the gravitational pull of a small star, and you have Brent Spiner doing something endlessly fascinating with his hands and his head tilt, and you have a Klingon security officer who is visually arresting, just by standing there, someone is going to get lost in the shuffle. For Crosby, that someone was her. She later said in interviews that she felt invisible. Episode after episode, she was standing in the background, delivering 1 or 2 lines, and watching other characters get the meaty storylines she'd been hoping for. She'd left a film career for this. She had turned down other projects, and she was essentially decorating the bridge. By the end of season 1, she'd made up her mind. She went to the producers and asked to be written out. Not recast, not reduced. Gone. She wanted Tasha Yar killed, and here's where it gets genuinely wild. They said yes. In the episode Skin of Evil, Tasha Yar is killed by an oil slick. I'm not being dismissive. That's basically what happens. A malevolent tar creature kills her casually, almost as an afterthought, and that was it. No heroic sacrifice, no meaningful send-off. Just gone. The character even got a holographic farewell scene that cast members have described as uncomfortable to film because everyone knew Crosby had chosen to leave, and the whole thing felt oddly hollow. And Crosby? She immediately regretted it. Within a year, she was doing interviews saying she'd made a mistake. She came back as an alternate timeline Tasha in the episode Yesterday's Enterprise, which is one of the best episodes the show ever produced, and then again as Sela, Tasha's half-Romulan daughter, which is a sentence that only makes sense if you've seen the show. The tragic irony is that by season 3 and 4, when the writers finally figured out how to write for the ensemble, Tasha Yar would have had incredible material. Crosby knows it too. She said as much. She jumped off a moving train and watched it turn into the Orient Express from the platform. The man behind the bald cap, Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart did not want to be in Star Trek. Let me be very clear about that. He thought it was beneath him. He was a classically trained Royal Shakespeare Company actor. He had done Chekhov, Beckett, and Shakespeare. He had a career in serious theater and serious film, and now someone was asking him to put on a bald cap and command a spaceship every week. When he was first approached for the role, Stewart was skeptical. When he showed up to his first meeting at Paramount, he was reportedly shocked by how seriously everyone was taking it. Cast members who were there that day have said, Stewart arrived looking like a man attending a funeral for someone he didn't particularly like. He took the role, but he didn't unpack. That is not a metaphor. Stewart has told this story himself. For the first several weeks of production, he kept his suitcases packed in his apartment. He was so convinced the show was going to be canceled, so certain that this whole thing was going to collapse, that he wanted to be ready to leave at a moment's notice. He didn't hang pictures. He didn't set up his space. He was in full survival mode, just waiting for the inevitable phone call telling him it was over. Now, imagine being the lead actor on a television show and operating from that mindset. Every scene carries the quiet weight of a man who thinks he's already failed. And then, something shifted. The fans responded. The ratings came in. The show kept going. And somewhere around the middle of season 1, Stewart unpacked his bags. Literally. And he's talked about it as the moment he decided, okay, maybe this is real, but here's the part people forget. Even after he committed, the early seasons were a creative frustration for Stewart. Roddenberry's no-conflict rules meant Picard couldn't really be tested the way a protagonist needs to be tested. Stewart was playing a perfect man in a world with no real stakes, and for an actor of his caliber, that is its own kind of torture. It wasn't until the Season 3 finale, The Best of Both Worlds, when Picard is assimilated by the Borg and turned into a weapon against humanity, that the show finally gave Stewart something to really chew on. He later described that storyline as the moment he fell in love with the character, which means for 2.5 seasons, one of the greatest actors in the cast was operating at somewhere around 40% of his actual capability. Think about that. The counselor who couldn't take it. Marina Sirtis. Marina Sirtis was days away from being fired. Not frustrated, not considering leaving. Days away from the producers replacing her entirely and recasting the role of Counselor Troy. Here's what happened. Sirtis is British. She came to Los Angeles chasing an acting career, grinding through auditions, and when she landed Star Trek, she thought her life had changed. And it had, just not in the way she expected. The early writing for Troy was, to put it diplomatically, not great. Her primary function in most episodes was to stand near Picard and say things like, "Captain, I sense great hostility," which, when the villain is pointing a weapon at the ship, then is not exactly a stunning display of psychic ability. But here's the part people forget. Even after he committed, Sirtis has joked about this herself. She knew the character wasn't working. The writers knew it too. And the producers, instead of fixing the writing, started questioning the casting. There were serious conversations, documented by multiple people who were in those rooms, about whether Marina Sirtis should be replaced, whether Troy should be recast or restructured entirely. Sirtis was on the bubble. Her contract was precarious, and she knew it. What saved her wasn't a big performance. It wasn't a showcase episode. It was timing. The conversations about recasting got deprioritized as other production fires demanded attention. And then the show got renewed, and the moment passed. Sirtis survived by the narrowest of margins. The character didn't really come into her own until much later. Back when writers started giving Troy actual storylines, putting her in command, stripping away the powers in certain episodes to test who she was underneath them. By that point, Sirtis had found the character. But she will tell you herself, and has told interviewers this, that she spent the first 2 seasons not entirely sure she was going to make it to a third. The robot who wanted to quit. Brent Spiner. Brent Spiner is one of the funniest people in that cast, which makes it particularly brutal that he spent 7 years playing a character with no sense of humor, no emotions, and no ability to react to anything the way a normal human being would. Playing Data is a specific kind of psychological endurance test. Every scene, Spiner had to flatten himself. No reaction, no warmth, no instinct. Every natural impulse an actor has. Every tool in the toolkit suppressed. Other cast members have talked about how exhausting it was just to watch him do it. Imagine actually doing it. By the middle of the show's run, Spiner was openly talking about the toll it was taking. Not in a dramatic, "I'm gonna quit" kind of way. More in the quiet, grinding way that serious actors talk about when a role starts eating into who they actually are. He worried about what sustained emotional suppression was doing to him as a performer. Whether he was losing access to parts of himself that the role required him to lock away for years at a time. He set a limit. Spiner decided, quietly but firmly, that he would not play Data past a certain age. His reasoning was practical and a little heartbreaking. Data doesn't age. Spiner does. And at some point, the gap between the android's ageless face and the actor's actual face would become impossible to maintain, and frankly a little distracting. He didn't want to play a character written as immortal while visibly aging in front of the audience. It felt dishonest to him. So he drew the line at the films. Nemesis in 2002 was, as far as Spiner was concerned, the end. And he meant it. For years he maintained that Data was done. The character famously died in that film, and Spiner seemed genuinely at peace with it. Of course, Picard on Paramount Plus eventually brought him back, and to his credit, the show found a clever way to address exactly the concern he'd had about aging. But for a long time, The man who played the most beloved android in television history was absolutely prepared to never play him again. Eerie the Klingon standoff, Michael Dorn. Michael Dorn almost didn't come back for the movies. Worf is arguably the breakout character of The Next Generation. He crossed over into Deep Space Nine, which is unprecedented for a Star Trek character at that point. He became the most frequently appearing character in the entire franchise. Dorn holds the record. He has played Worf in more episodes of television and film than any other actor has played any single character in Star Trek history. And after Generations, the first TNG film released in 1994, he nearly walked away from all of it. The issue was money and respect, and those two things are usually connected. Dorn felt that his contribution to the franchise wasn't being reflected in his compensation. The character had grown enormously, and Worf had become central to two separate shows simultaneously. And Dorn, by his own account, felt like the studio was content to take that for granted. The conversations about recasting got deprioritized as other production fires demanded attention. He held out. There were tense negotiations. There was a period where First Contact, the second film, and honestly the best one, was moving forward without certainty that Worf would be in it. The studio eventually met him closer to where he needed to be, and Dorn came back. But think about First Contact without Worf. The scene where he tells Picard that in the face of the Borg, dying in battle is preferable to whatever Picard is currently doing, which is somewhere between grief and rage. That scene lands the way it does because of Dorn's performance. Lose him, and that scene doesn't work. Possibly the whole film doesn't work the same way. He came back, but he made them earn it. The one nobody talks about. At Gates McFadden. Gates Pistols. McFadden was fired, not almost fired, not nudged toward the exit, called into an office and told her contract would not be renewed after season 1. Dr. Beverly Crusher was being written out of the show. McFadden was done. The official reason given at the time was vague. Creative differences, a desire to take the character in a new direction. What has emerged over the years, through interviews and accounts from people involved in the production, is that the friction was largely between McFadden and a specific producer, whose name I'll leave out of it, but who was, by multiple accounts, genuinely difficult to work with and who had pushed for her removal. She was replaced in season 2 by Dr. Catherine Pulaski, played by Diana Muldaur, a terrific actress who was given a character written as antagonistic toward Data, skeptical of technology, and frankly not particularly warm. Audiences noticed. Not just that it was a different actor, but that the dynamic had shifted. Something was missing. The show's writing staff noticed too, and by season 3 there were serious conversations about bringing McFadden back, which meant someone had to call her and ask her to return to a job that had fired her. That is an uncomfortable phone call to make. And here's the thing, she didn't have to say yes. She would have been completely justified in saying thanks, but I've moved on. But she said yes. She came back. She played Beverly Crusher for the remaining 5 seasons of the show, and all 4 films. Now, you might think, great, problem solved, happy ending. And in some ways, it was. But McFadden has been honest about the fact that coming back wasn't simple emotionally. She had been rejected by this show. She had processed that, rebuilt, and then been asked to walk back in like nothing happened. That takes a specific kind of professionalism and grace that doesn't get talked about enough. Of all the near misses on this list, McFadden's is the one that required the most from her personally. She didn't almost walk away. She was pushed out the door, and she still came back. What they almost lost. Here's what's remarkable about all of this. The Next Generation ran for 7 seasons. It produced some of the most celebrated episodes in television history. It won Emmy Awards. It launched movies. It is, by any reasonable measure, one of the most successful science fiction television series ever made. Yes, and it came this close to being completely different. Lose Denise Crosby before she got to leave on her own terms, and the Yar storyline gets resolved messily. Lose Patrick Stewart before he unpacked his bags, and you lose the gravity that every other performance orbited around. Lose Marina Sirtis in season 2, and you lose the character development that paid off so beautifully later. Lose Brent Spiner to burnout, and Data never gets the ending he deserved. Lose Michael Dorn to a contract dispute, and the movies lose their emotional backbone. Lose Gates McFadden to the door someone else opened for her, and the show loses its conscience. Every single one of these people stayed, or came back, or held on long enough for things to get better. And the thing is, the show rewarded them for it. Not immediately, not always comfortably, but eventually, and what gave each of them something worth having. Crosby got yesterday's Enterprise, Stewart got the Borg, Sirtis got Chain of Command, Spiner got the best android storylines ever written for television. Dorn got a legacy that still hasn't ended. McFadden got 7 seasons to prove the people who fired her wrong. Television is almost never the clean, finished product we remember it as. It's messier than that. It's people making hard decisions under impossible pressure, and sometimes getting it spectacularly wrong before they get it right. The next generation got it right, eventually, and that's what makes it worth talking about 30-something years later.